Hey, John, thanks so much for the questions. I thought it'd be better if I tell them to you, um, just because I think I can portray my emotions better, and then you can, write down what you see fit, kind of like a interview. So you asked me first to start off talking about my childhood and the role that soccer played in particular. As it happens, nobody in my family played soccer. I have very little idea how it came about, other than all of us Americans play in a league called AYSO when we're like 4 to 5. And then for me, I fell deeply in love with the sport, and it about 8 years old, I decided that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I slept with a ball, I ate with a ball, I took it to temple, I took it in the shower, and I said, the more I can touch the ball, the better I'll become, because I asked myself, what job is there that I can make a difference in the world and do this sport as often as possible? And the answer was become a pro. And after that, I committed everything. I stopped at 8 years old. No candy, no soda, no sugar. It's to that this day, but I just committed everything to the sport. Valparaiso was amazing. It was a life changing experience. I don't know how much your community knows about college sports, but the coach there was a gentleman named Mike Avery, and he had me on campus, and I fell in love with the campus. But it's a very expensive school, 600,000 krona a year. And I told him, look, I can't afford to come here. And he said, we're offering you a full scholarship. And that really changed my life, and it changed the direction in terms of there was a coach who believed in me. Up until that point, everybody kind of told me small and you couldn't do it. A couple coaches here and there were supportive, but he was really the first of someone who was coaching my age group to say, look, we think you could become a very, very good soccer player, and I'm going to financially prove it. And, that was a lot of money over 4 years. That's 2.5 million krona. So it was a really big step in my career. And then college there's a huge emphasis on how you become as a person. And it just had a huge transformation on, how to be a leader, what it means to be a leader, and just the importance of being a good person as well as a good soccer player. And Valparaiso and Mike Avery in particular, my coach at the time, really had a profound impact on me. Your question about Sacramento is a good one. I can repeat it here if you want. As a former player of Sacramento Republic, eller jag kan säga på svenska, du som före detta spelade i Sacramento Republic, vad tror du om deras chanser att lyckas i MLS? Är Sacramento en bra stad för en MLS-lag? Detta är en jättebra stad för en MLS-lag. Fantastiskt. De har 10 000 personer varje match. Om vi har en stora stadion, vi kan ha 20 000. Det ska bli fantastic support. In regards to MLS, it's a good question. It will depend on the people that were in charge when I was there or have changed, so I don't know. We've seen a couple franchises, FC Cincinnati and some other newer franchises, Nashville, not go to a fantastic start right out the gate, and it can be difficult. But Nashville just started, so that's harsh. Maybe Cincinnati's a better example. And it's hard to say, but I think the fan base will be, Atlanta-esque. And because of their history, because they do have a history of winning, I actually do think that, they'll bring people within the group to the first team. And I think that is underrated, because sometimes you need to bring people from outside. And yes, they might be more, quote unquote, talented, but we all know how much heart this game takes. And I think when you bring people from within, there's this sort of grit that you can't really replace with money. So I think they'll do things really well, actually, and I hope to be a part of them one day. The next question, hur fick du möjlighet att flytta till Sverige? So it's a really cool story. I was playing in a game in the USL for a team called Wilmington Hammerheads, and we were playing against a team called Harrisburg Islanders. And my team was having a really good season. This Harrisburg Islanders team was having a really bad season. But they had a player on their team named Bobby Warshaw, and he was the captain of the team. And in the middle of the game, he turns to his own coach and he says, "Shut the fuck up." And he was the captain. And he would go on to score 2 goals against us, and we tied 2-2. And when he said that to his coach, everybody froze. The ref froze, I froze, his teammates froze, his coach froze, because we've all dreamt of saying this to our coaches, but we never would, because it's, inappropriate. So after the game, and he played center mid, so he and I were kicking each other all game. So after the game, I went up to him and I was like, "Who are you?" As it turned out, he was drafted, I think, fourth overall. You have to double check that, but he was drafted to FC Dallas. Has a couple caps for the youth national team. Played in Dallas, then he moved to Sweden and he played in Ängelholm. And he played with UK Persson, who was the coach at Varberg when I moved there. So he told me, hey, this was a few years after actually I played in that game against him. He became an MLS commentator, like an Allsvenskan commentator. You're familiar with MLS. And he was on TV all the time, and I sent him a note, congratulations on your retirement. He wrote this book that was fantastic, and it really was similar to my life in a lot of ways. And I just said congrats. And then he said, what are your plans? And at the time, I had played another season in the USL, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't actually have a team, I don't think. And he's like, I'm going to send your video to this guy, UK Persson, who's starting a new team in Sweden. And at the time, I knew nothing about Sweden, and I was kind of your typical American who gets it confused with Switzerland, other than Zlatan. So I knew, obviously, some players. And Levecki from Malmo, and I was better than your average American, but I didn't know a lot about Swedish football, that's for sure. And then he sent my video over. They really liked it. And I went on trial for 2 weeks, and I did well, and they liked what they saw. And I really liked them, and that's how I got over to Sweden. Yeah, last year was tough. I fractured my foot in 3 different places, and a stress fracture also. So that was a bummer, but I'm fully fit now, ready to go. Yeah, I'm fantastic. I feel great. To describe myself as a player, I think an image can be helpful. Verratti-esque, Torreira-esque are kind of the players I like to resemble, or that I see in myself, I should say. But I don't try and be them. I'm my own player. But, I'm shorter, so feisty and a grit and communicate really well and play passes forward and play passes through lines. There's, games that I would have played for Varberg and for Åtvidaberg where you can kind of see my personality, where I go Paul Scholes-esque, go into a hard tackle. I enjoy a good tackle. My slogan was bra tackling. That is kind of what the Swedish word I use all the time. And when I came back here after my Swedish adventure, I was playing with my American teammates and I couldn't help saying bra tackling, and nobody knew what I was saying. So to describe myself, I'd say I play forward passes, I play between lines, I love a good tackle, and I love communicating and being a leader of the group to help us figure out the system of the opponent so then we can win the game. Yeah. The next question you have is, how did you like Sweden off the pitch and how have you spent your spare time? I love Sweden. Jag älskar Sverige. Jag kan prata svenska också. Jag älskar att lära svenska. Det är jättekul för mig. Och jag känner när jag pratar svenska med svenska folk, de är glada att jag försöker att prata svenska. Så de känner jag vill lära svenska. Jag är inte dit typisk amerikansk person. När jag kommer till Sverige och jag aldrig lär svenska. Jag kan förstå vad de säger och du kan förstå vad jag säger. Och när jag pratar med min laget kompis, de kan förstå vad jag säger. Så jag tycker det är viktigt att förstå din kultur. Såklart också, jag älskar fika nu. Och för mig, jag läser mycket. Så jag läser mycket om din försäkringsklassing, insurance, or healthcare. And it's really interesting, the culture of Sweden to me, because it's so different from back home. And now I have a totally new understanding of, in my opinion, how the world maybe should be run. At the same time, Sweden is a lot smaller than America, so you can't do the same thing. But, I really admire, this concept that everybody should deserve healthcare and that you guys don't have to work 15-hour days. And, my parents have 2 or 3 jobs. I also, as a football player, in Sweden was able to have football as my job, but in America, basically, you're going to have multiple jobs, pretty much everybody. And that's just how we operate. And on that note, I do love the hustle that some of us Americans have from our culture. But I admired in Sweden, there was a huge sense of family and relaxing and enjoying the time. And there's just not the same stress on finances. And to add to that, I think, people don't judge people the same. When I walk into town in America, whether I mean to or not, I automatically can go rich, poor, happy, sad, based off of their skin or their looks. And I could be wrong, and perhaps it's slightly stereotypical, But in Sweden, you actually can't do those things because financially, people are more similar, and that's lovely. And then had the opportunity. I volunteered in a couple schools while I was there, so that's where I spent my time. Actually, I would volunteer at Jensenskolan in Linköping and Almerskolan in Varberg, and I helped kids with homework or PE. I'm not really much for sitting around. From time to time in Varberg, sure, I went to the beach and I surfed actually a little bit. That was cool. And then in Linköping, it's a cute town, so maybe go for a walk. But for the most part, I was volunteering in the schools during the day. Then I'd go to training in the afternoon. And I really loved learning from the kids and their culture. And you find that kids, for the most part, in all parts of the world are the same. When I played in Israel, I did something very similar. But in Sweden, there's also, this awesome sense of, we care about the environment and we care about the world and we want to be clean. We take our shoes off before we go inside, unlike us. And for me, it was amazing. I really loved my time there. And it was awesome. I just learned so much. I feel like a different person here, actually, because of my time there. The next question is, who's the best player I've played with and against, respectively? So when I was on trial at Toronto, so I played with Giovinco and against Giovinco. And my story that I tell people is we were doing 4 versus 4. It was young versus old. So on the opposite team was Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, Giovinco, and the other guy was, I think it was Osario, Jonathan Osario, and then it was me and a couple other the young kids. And the coach came over to us. He goes, "Look, if in order to have a chance, you need to double team Giovinco. And if you double team somebody in 4v4, that means there's 2 people or one other person for sure open." And we would go double team Giovinco, and it didn't stop him really. His first step was just so fast. He's shorter than I am. I'm like 170 centimeters, and his first step was just amazing. And he could go right or left, and he was amazing. Then last one here. When it comes to soccer, for you now that to wrap things up, what's next? I've signed with a new team. They're called the Richmond Kickers. We're in the USL, and that's what's next for me.